There seems to be some kind of disturbance. I'm gonna go check it out.
We request that everybody stays calm at the current moment.
Who are you people?
I want a coffee!
You are now tuned in.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Where love and life come together. From the Spacebird Media Studios, it's Roxanne and Ace Unlimited.
We're Roxanne and Ace Unlimited. Always so wonderful to be with you. We get to laugh. We get to cry. We get to share the strange stuff that goes on in the world. And it's super fun. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. Coming off Labor Day, it's kind of nice having a short work week, so that's always good to, hopefully see a weekend that much quicker. I just need it to be cooler. I know I keep saying that, but I'm becoming that toddler that's like, I want fall and I want it now. Like I can feel myself like I bring my hoodies out and like smell them because they've been missed for months. They're like, someday we'll meet again. But it was great. Of course, we're so glad to be back with you. Thanks to our friends at My Brothers Cup and Birmingham Mortgage Group. I feel like, though, each week we start the show with the passing of another legend.
Jimmy Buffett, this one hit hard. I started crying. I'm like, what? How could this happen? He died of Merkel cell carcinoma, which is much more rare than melanoma. A terrible way to die. It starts with a tumor that doesn't even hurt, so you don't know until it starts spreading and spreads to organs. Just really awful. 76 years old, too young, married, has kids, and was just... Everybody I've talked to, and I have friends who are the kind of friends that went to a bar and hung out with Jimmy Buffett, which is super fun. Yeah. And they loved him. Totally what you would expect. Down to earth and fabulous. You wouldn't know that he's a billionaire and didn't ever act like it. And so it was shocking and so incredibly sad.
Well, and you shared a story I had actually not even heard of. I was like, how did I miss this story? But you have your attachment to Buffett is more through your husband, Wayne. Tell that.
Well, we were gifted tickets to a concert, and I'm like, sure, I would love to see Jimmy Buffett. I don't know what being a parrot head is all about, but let's go. I mean, we're a couple who will dress up and go all out for these shows. And we had tickets we were way up in the back in Birmingham and got to see him. The concert blew my mind. It was so rich, so technically brilliant, and yet so laid back and fun. Everybody was having a ball. Yep. And there's a song that he does by Louis Armstrong, Stars Fell on Alabama, and Wayne knows it by heart and sang it to me, which normally would be obnoxious, but I mean, we were really far in the back. Yeah. And it was so romantic, and it's one of my favorite moments of our relationship. And so I wanted to have that repeated. We had tickets to go see him again, and then COVID happened and it got canceled. And so I was weepy on and off all weekend over it. Yeah. Just a tremendous talent and such a fun songwriter. And then it turned into themed restaurants, casinos, hotels, and cruises, and his own clothing, because that whole faded khakis, flip-flops, short sleeve shirts, all of his crazy, Hawaiian pattern shirts became the Key West style and what a lot of people wanted to wear. People want to be comfortable. And so all of that added on to incredible music that just makes people happy.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of cool. I was a buddy of mine when I lived in Tally. He was had formed a Jimmy Buffett tribute band, and he needed a drummer. So that was the most that I remember spending time. Like, I was aware of the big hits, but wouldn't call myself a parrot head either. But seeing what those songs did to a crowd, like, it was its own worshipful experience. And they weren't worshiping Buffett. They were just in the vibe of, yeah, man, we're friends and this is cool and this is good. But I'll tell you, my favorite moment, though, of Jimmy Buffett, I was, as a student when I was in college, had the honor and privilege to be one of the extras for the Ty Cobb movie where they shot it in Birmingham, which is where we're located. And it's at the old, what legendary Rickwood Field, which is where they're doing the Field of Dreams this year for the Major League Baseball, which is very exciting. It's very cool. Like just like you've seen in all the movies, like 42 and Ty Cobb. I mean, it still has that vibe of baseball from that era. So anyway, they were shooting the scene, and Jimmy Buffett was cast as the heckler. He was not just a heckler, but he was also handicapped, which like you don't mess with a handicapped person now, but you definitely, even though Ty Cobb had that anger and smugness about him, which made people hate him in baseball, Tommy Lee Jones played it brilliantly. And we were there the day he shot the scene where Ty Cobb, in a famous story where he jumps the crowd after a heckler was, yelling all kinds of expletives and, things at him. And Jimmy Buffett played that heckler. And so we were there the day that Tommy Lee Jones jumps the fence at Rickwood Field in Birmingham to beat up Jimmy Buffett. And it was fantastic. And then Jimmy stayed for the night, brought his whole band, and did a show at Rickwood for everyone who was an extra in the movie. So that experience made me love him for how much he loves his fans and vice versa. So I know it's going to be a huge loss. And, even for those who are in the theater community, they did a jukebox musical out of, Jimmy Buffett's music. So Margaritaville, another level of people in music finding out about him, and his legacy will live on for sure.
Too young.
Yep.
76 years old, and it's shocking. Even though he had canceled shows and there were rumors of illness, he didn't share a lot about it. And so it was really shocking for people. Let's dive in and talk about Jesus for a moment. How do we know if we're saved? I believe that we give our lives to him out loud, that we say a prayer. It tells us in Romans that we say we're turning away from sin and we accept him as Savior. I think we make that too complicated, and then we get caught up in whether we're saved or not. So that wasn't very eloquently stated, but Dr. Adrian Rogers does, and he says there are several tests to make sure that you're saved. I find this fascinating. The Lordship test. What is that? You ask yourself, is Jesus the Lord of my life? Is he? And one way we can tell is, are we surrendered in all areas? Sometimes we're like, oh, it's cool, Jesus, you can have this, but I'm going to take care of this area.
Yeah. And I think that's always the biggest one. It's the greatest indicator, but always the biggest one for us to overcome, because we think, oh, well, I've given him my life, but he doesn't care about this part of me. I'll deal with it in my own time. But really, and I know from my own experience, that's the one thing that's really holding you back from a true relationship. It doesn't change whether you're saved or not, but it also does change whether you are enjoying the peace of what comes from that saved relationship with the Lord.
Then he says the fellowship test. Do you love your brothers and sisters in Christ? And I think this is an area where we need a whole lot of work right now. There seems to be such vitriol and hatred and offense for other people that are God's children. You don't want to sit here and say we need to sing Kumbaya and everybody needs to hold hands, but Ace, everybody needs to hold hands. I mean,
we need the world to feel like a Jimmy Buffett concert is what I'm feeling. Yeah.
To just get along and know that God is love, 1 John 4:7. And then he says the relationship test. Can you say at this very moment that you have a personal relationship with Jesus? I absolutely can, and I'm so happy about that, because without him, I'm in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Well, and I think the great thing is, all of those things, all those individual tests, it doesn't matter what religion that you choose to practice, as long as those things point you to that relationship with Christ. It points you to an understanding of who God is, so that you can let go of the past and you can move beyond the things that oftentimes are the scars that we see, because we know ourselves in our vulnerable spot. And so does God, but we hide them from other people, but we don't have to hide them from him. So a lot of times the habits we've created with humans, we also take that into our relationship with God, and it doesn't work out.
And then Adrian Rogers says, if I would believe you, then you would save me with all my heart, as much as is in me. For now and forever, I trust that I am saved. You know, that's what I run into doing ministry in the streets a lot. There's a ton of confusion from people as to whether they're going to be in heaven and whether they're saved. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we should complicate the gospel of Jesus.
No. Well, I mean, we have. It's the truth. But I believe that in the same way that a lot of things, veils are lifted, it's that moment when you realize, okay, I've been seeing God's word wrong because it was handed down to me from someone who either chose to still hold on to, racial lines or, other lines of, politics or sexuality or whatever. And you get to that place where you yourself realize you're wrong. And the only person you really have to apologize to is God, because he's the one that's helping to lift the veil so that when you get to heaven, you're not going, what? How did they get in? Really, they're saying the same thing about you. How did you get in? So, we all have sinned and fall short of God's glory, but that's the beautiful thing. Have that relationship with him so that you can see the world the way he sees it and to love the world the way he loves it.
Well, we will have our popcorn popped and all be in attendance ready for the Golden Bachelor. Oh, yes, the Golden Bachelor. 71-year-old Jerry Turner is looking for love, and we're going to watch every part of it. He has grown children. He's got grandchildren. And my daughter, Hannah, said, I cannot wait to watch the children chime in and the grandchildren on who he's dating. Right. It's, for some reason, she thinks it's going to be awesome.
Well, I mean, and he looks awesome for 71. I want to look that dapper at 71, to have the gray and, especially in a time and age where like people are like, oh yeah, you can get soap and wash gray out and you look 20 years younger. No, I like the salt and pepper, let's embrace that, because it also is attached to all the wisdoms we've learned. So I am not a reality TV show guy. I'm sure my wife will be watching this one. I know you love The Bachelor. I can't bring myself to it. But at least for the first time in a while, it's not a bunch of 20-somethings going, he loves me. It's people, slightly older with a little bit more relationship wisdom behind them that maybe they can learn something for the next reality show.
Well, America's fallen in love with this guy. They just love him. I mean, all during the Bachelorette finale, he was all the rage. He came on and all the bachelors, or real young guys, were standing up clapping. He's a widower and was very much in love and wants another chance at love. And so everybody's rooting for him. So we may have to have an update at some point on the Golden Bachelor. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So speaking of happy marriages, we go to a couple who met 84 years ago. They met. They'd been married for 70 years. What is their secret of a happy marriage? Remember how lucky you are that your partner chose you. I have no problems with this one.
Yep,
I can hardly believe that my man chose me. And I have such a high level of respect for him. Mm-hmm. It's almost to the point where, how can I possibly be that good? Right. That's who I'm married to. Yeah. Someone with just such character and integrity. It just, I'm guilty of other things. That's not one of them.
Yeah. Well, and it's great too when you get to that place where you're in a relationship that's healthy, because you see the value of each other in that vein. But it's also great too when you have moments when you're having a little tiff, and how you together work through it. Like, is it something like, is it where one gets hot-headed, the other one's hot-headed? Because I've been in those relationships and those are no fun. But are you in a place where you can get, in a spiritual place so that you are respecting one another, and I have chosen you to live my life with and to, go through these adventures, whether it's, laying tile for the bathroom floor or it's off to Renaissance festivals, wherever you are in between. But you've chosen the partner that you believe will enhance those adventures no matter what they are.
That's one of the things. Know how to argue and make up as swiftly as you can.
Mhm.
Be proud of your partner. I know for you, I had the privilege of being there right from the start and kind of
Yep.
like being your big sister and, giving you advice when you probably didn't even need it. But I will say, you just, first of all, Tawny's gorgeous, but she is so smart too. But her talent, I mean, you just went on and on. This woman sings like nobody's one woman shows on a professional level. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
A theater professional paid full time, which is very rare. And so, but you were enthralled with that. You said, I finally have someone who's into music. Do you remember that? You were like,
Sure.
I'm with someone who likes music.
Yeah, an extroverted music lover. Who knew I had a type? I should have known this all along. But the thing that I will say too is I would be a fan of my wife if she wasn't my wife. Like her talent and even with Ryan and Mia too, they got, mom's voice and acting abilities. So I beam when they're on stage and when she's on stage, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to support each other in those moments. And, I love it. When we get done with a show, when it airs on a Friday, my wife will text me, hey, great show today, babe. You sounded awesome, or something moved her in some way. And that's support because, again, you support each other in your struggles and in your celebrations. It can't just all be when things are great and high and there's, awards or whatever. But really in those low moments too, you're, coming together. That to me, and I will pass on Roxanne's, the nugget she's referring to is to, if you are dating someone, to go through the 4 seasons. That if you go through those 4 seasons and then add, and you're still together after the 4, and then you get to that 5th season and you start applying what you learned from season 1, you see if that relationship really can stand up to what your expectations are, or what God has been showing you or saying to you. So it was the best advice, I think, out of all the good and failed relationships I've had. So it's stood the test. And this week actually marks my wife and I's 5th anniversary of our first date. So it's like, little mile marker. I always remember the window because I met her on my mom's birthday because I had just gone to take my mom to lunch, had stopped to get a coffee on the way home, and that's where we met. And then, a week later, we went on our first date. So, which the kids always remember. They're always like, your date anniversary is coming up, and we're like, yeah, we should get another date. See ya. Bye.
So incredible. Yes, it's important to be proud of your partner, and it's important to be proud of your friends. And I consider Turan Newell, and I know you do as well, Ace, to be a great friend, someone who's very godly, prays with people, loves the Lord, and loves to make things happen for people. And we're talking about mortgages right now. Buying a house is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make. It's a huge investment. It needs to be done properly, and you don't want to spend a fortune doing it. This is the guy to make it happen for you. Turan Newell, Birmingham Mortgage Group. Brilliant.
Yeah, and I think the thing I love, one of my favorite stories of Turan is seeing and watching him break down in tears with families who he's helped get into homes that looked like impossible situations, but he gets so invested into each of the families that he helps that it is a part of who he is. So you want someone like that. That he's fighting for you to get you into that dream home or to help you refinance. Set up your appointment, give him a call, and you can do that at bhammortgage.com or call 205-259-1656.
Roxanne and Ace Unlimited, we are so thankful to God for the incredible people that he brings into our lives that hopefully will be a great encouragement to you. And the following gentleman that we're getting ready to interview is really a hero. What he's been through, childhood abuse and drug abuse and all of the things that led to a moment in his life where he decided he didn't want to be here anymore. And you know what God did? God spared him and gave him this incredible international ministry where he literally talks people off the ledge through the love of Jesus. Suicide prevention is at the heart of this incredible gentleman. We are so honored to welcome to the show Korey Burris. Hi, Korey.
Hey, well, thank you very much. I truly appreciate y'all and give me a chance to spread some good news.
So
thank
Korey, I just want to go back to take me to Korey the week before you made that choice. Like, what was going on in your life? Because, you hear stories from people that they just didn't see the signs. And were there things going on in your life that you were hiding from other people, that you were hiding from yourself? Like, what was happening during that time?
Oh, absolutely. I was definitely hiding all kinds of things from people. I mean, just my thoughts were, I was, which I had a rough childhood. So, I mean, I was overwhelmed, and the thoughts were just, it would be so much easier to not have to deal with all this mess, and the idea of suicide just kept being a better idea every day, which is just crazy. But my head was so wrapped up in those negative thoughts, that were being put in there by Satan, that, it was actually a good idea to me, and it was that's just absurd. But yeah, it was just the fact that, and I was actually happy about it, leading up to the day, I couldn't wait to the day that I decided I was going to do it. And it was just, it was surreal for me, I sat there and stared at the bullet, for 7 days waiting for the day, because I had a certain day planned out. And it was just, I was just eager to get it done. I was tired of the mess, tired of the struggle, tired of life in general, I guess. Just everything that was around me was chaos. So it was my way of escape, I guess.
Tell us more about that struggle. Was it financial? Was it relational? What led you to the point where you just didn't want to live anymore?
Well, back then, we didn't have any help. It's like you didn't reach out for help. It was just, unheard of. And especially if you're a guy, you suck it up, buttercup, or rub some dirt in it, and go about your day. Well, my best friend had died by suicide the year before, and there was just, other than that, my dad and my family life, the home life was pretty toxic, and he was abusive. So it was like I had nobody to talk to. I had no way to vent, about anything that was going on. And like after my buddy died, and it was not just me, it was the whole school and the whole town. It was just, all right, well, that's done. Let's just go about our day. Well, all these kids need some mental help, and it was just wasn't there, and so it was just like a snowball effect. It just kept building and building, and that was the outcome that I guess chose, because it was a choice. But yeah, thank God today there's so much help out there available, and you just got to reach out and grab it,
Korey, were you, running with the rough crowd, or were you already, had you delved into, had you been arrested? Had you been into drugs? Like what was the pattern? Or is it just that you just didn't feel like anybody would understand what you were going through?
No, I wasn't running with the wrong crowd. I wasn't even on drugs yet. I'd never even smoked pot. I mean, I had drank, at school parties, when somebody had a party on the weekend, but that was what, 2-3 times a year, maybe.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I was on anything, or, had a dependency for anything. It was more just, I didn't know how to get it out. I didn't know how to talk to anybody about it. I felt like that nobody would understand, or, they'd be like, oh, well, you're a kid or whatever, just, you need to just go on about your business, or just suck it up, and, tomorrow's another day type deal. It's like that's no help,
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was the more, I just had nobody, I had nobody there for me. I mean, my mom was there.
Korey, I'm so sorry. I'm interrupting you. Go ahead.
My mom was there in a sense, but she was a nurse and she worked so much, so she really wasn't there. But I know I could have talked to her probably, but it just, I didn't, I thought it would cause more problems, and I just didn't.
Well, Korey, you described some pretty horrific child abuse, being forced to kneel on rice till it hurt, being put in a drum in your backyard,
Yeah.
having to lean up to try to breathe. It's like the worst nightmare. And I think when you're subjected to mental and physical abuse as a child, it affects your self-esteem. Do you think that was definitely a factor in the decision where you were planning your death?
Oh, for sure. My self-esteem was like out the window. Matter of fact, I still carry things that are like self-doubt. I carry that with me. I try not to, but I still have it. I have to push through it. And that comes from, the mental abuse of him telling me I wasn't good enough or I couldn't do things, or, you know what I mean? So the self-doubt's always there. But with most things I push through, but some things it still hinders me on. But I'm in the process of working on all that. So, but yeah, and I just recently figured that out. It's like I was wondering why I had self-doubt. Like, everything I do, I seem to do. And then somebody told me that the word "spoke over you" always has an effect. Instead of what you do. It's something that somebody spoke over me. So, yeah, it was kind of a new realization here the last few months, and so I'm trying to get past that now. But it'll happen,
So Korey, tell us about the moment that you found God. Like what was that moment, and what was the time of duration from when you shot yourself to that moment when God, because I would have to believe, and it's hard for me to see because I didn't have the childhood you did. So it's hard for me not to look at something like trying to kill myself and then not succeeding, to not be able to say, well, God must have a plan for me. Like, was it instantaneous in that? Was that a spiritual moment, or did it take a while?
Well, I grew up in church with my grandparents, and my parents would go sometimes, and I live right down the road from my church. Like I used to ride my bike down there all the time and go by myself when I was old enough. But so I accepted Christ when I was 12, but I didn't get it. I was 12 years old. I thought I understood it, but I didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
And but I always prayed to God, and I knew He would never leave us, and He always loved us. That was kind of like my view of it, and that's all I knew. That's all I held on to. So like after I shot myself, I was in the hospital, and I told God, I said, "Well, I don't know why you saved me, but I know there's a reason." So I mean, I was talking to Him the whole time. I guess that's when I started understanding Him more. The more I could talk to Him, and but I mean, I still didn't know a whole lot. But I would talk to Him every day, and I told Him, I said, "I'm gonna ask you every day, until I get an answer." And it was 12 years after I shot myself, and He actually answered me. And I did ask every day, why'd you save me? And so when He did tell me, it was just like I was mad. I just wrecked my truck. I towed it at 80 miles an hour with an 18-wheeler on the interstate. So, about a week after that, I broke both my shoulders. So I couldn't work. I didn't have my truck. I couldn't use my arms. So I was kind of aggravated and overwhelmed. How am I going to support my family, And so I had a few choice words for Him, what the blank you saved me for. And I really wasn't expecting an answer, but it was just loud. Well, it was loud. It was big. It's the only way I can explain it. I knew it was God, and it was out loud. It had great authority. And He told me to help people with suicides. And, I said no, which, I said no 4 or 5 times. But He kept telling me, yeah, you're going to do that. And I said, no, that's not me. You got the wrong one, And He said, well, I created you. That's what, you're here for. And I kind of just stopped. And I told Him no again. I was like, no. But when I told Him yes, it was just like everything made sense, like in an instant, like a light switch went off, and I understood everything that I wanted to know in my life. Why is this happening? This, it all made sense. So that was like my realization point of who He is and what He's about. And I started hitting it hard, and I went to church 6 days a week for 6 years, and work pulled me out of church, and then I went down a roller coaster ride. And I made my way back, thank God. But yeah, so I've been back on the track since like 2016, and yeah, I'm not going back. Not gonna happen.
Korey, some people are listening to this. They can't see your face. Others on YouTube can see the damage to your face that you sustained when you shot yourself. It can't be all that common for someone who shoots themselves. I mean, in the face to live. How did that even happen?
That's only by the hand of God. I wasn't supposed to live.
The gun, the shot went through your eye, if I remember right.
Right. The whole half of my face was gone, like from my nose all the way over here was
gone.
Just a big hole. Yeah, it's just all gone. And I could turn my face and see my molars over here through this big hole in my face. And it was horrific. And that was what, 2 weeks after it happened, and they had done surgery and packed it all, and yeah, that was when I saw it. It was bigger. When I saw it, it was probably about right here. But it was all the way down to here because they had to pull all this up. It was a wreck. But
Well,
hey, but God,
and knowing that he called you into the ministry of helping people, what would you say to someone who is listening and is at that point where maybe today is that day that they decided they've been holding the bullet for 7 days and they're where you were? What are you going to say to them right now?
I would tell them to get the Bible, start reading it, start studying God's word, and start getting close to Jesus, because that's the only way to actually 100% beat this and be happy and be joyful without it being circumstantial. Because I've tried every other way of trying to be all right, and it never worked. The only way that did work was just by studying his word, just by getting close to him. And he loves us so much that he will do the rest for us. We don't have to try to change everything about us, because we can't.
Yeah.
You know, we can't change our heart. That's the only thing God can do. So getting close to God through his word and studying the word, it will allow our heart to change, and we won't feel like that, and those demons won't be on us, and we'll be able to combat it, and we'll be able to take care of ourselves in this world and be happy. You know, it's so important, and people, I try to harp on it to read God's word, and I guess people just think it's too easy. You know, it's like it's not going to be easy, but if you think about it, like it's easy to read, but the things that are going to fall off and the feelings you deal with, you know, on the journey of it aren't always easy, but it's worth it in the end, because you got to go through the hard stuff to get to the good stuff. You can't just be in a bad point and the next day just be as happy as you can be, because you won't understand it. You got to understand the journey and who you are and God. And it's a whole thing. But if you love yourself enough and love God enough to sit down and read his word every day, and when you're feeling bad, don't sit there and feel bad, but pick it up as a weapon and read it, then your life will change. And I guarantee that, because God's not going to leave you where you're at. If you find God and you trust him and you search him, he's not going to leave you where you're at. So you're going to get to a better place in your life. It may not always be sunshine and rainbows, but you can go through those moments with joy in your heart, knowing that God's there, and you can have peace in the struggle, you know, when things do pop up.
Korey, I want to thank you for making yourself available to others 24/7 who are at the end of their rope. I mean, what does that mean to you, that you are able to point people toward Jesus and be with them in their most vulnerable moments?
I mean, it means everything to me. I mean, like I had a lady yesterday tell me that, you know, she's doing good because, you know, what I've taught her and this, that, and other. And, you know, she said she could never repay me. And I'm like, you already have. You know, that's the best repayment, is to see you doing good and make it another day, and trying to help other people. That's the best payment you can ever get.
For sure. So for someone who needs you, let's say they need you right now, how should they reach out?
They can message me on Facebook. They can message me on Instagram. They can call my phone number. It's 409-330-3755. I mean, just they can Google my name, and all kind of things will pop up. I mean, I'm out there.
We can all
It's
say
not
that
hard
about
to-
ourselves,
yeah.
but yours is good stuff. That's right.
Yeah. And I have a group that's on Facebook. They shut my page down on Facebook because, I'm preaching the word, but hey, that's what's going to happen, But my ministry on Facebook is called Suicide Prevention and God's Helpers. I have a group that's got almost 7,000 people in there. You can join that, and it's just, people encouraging everybody and just, everybody helping everybody. So, I mean, it's a win-win, you know.
So good. Korey Burris has been our guest, man. We appreciate your vulnerability and always glad to catch up with you, man. Thanks for so much of what you do.
Yes, sir. And I appreciate y'all.
All right, we have good intentions as Christians, but sometimes, we have some excuses as to why we can't serve. See if this rings a bell with you. We think we don't have enough to offer. For a lot of people, they think, she went to Africa. She sold, I have a friend like this. She sold everything she owned, literally, and took a duffel bag to Africa and never came back. And was saving babies right and left. This woman, I'm like, wow, okay. How can I serve? If I hand out a piece of paper, if I give someone a drink of water, how is that going to make a big difference? Well, it's excuse making. Yeah. We do have something to offer because I believe God created us all with a special gift and a special talent to serve others in a way that only we can do.
Yeah. Well, and the great thing is, not everyone has the gift of teaching. Not everyone has the gift of playing an instrument. Not everyone has the gift of public speaking, but you have a gift of some kind, and you could start a ministry within your church. You could see a need, a void of some kind based on conversations you hear of multiple people. And the great thing is there's other people that also have that same passion, drive, and gifts. And collectively, it's not all going to have to be on you. It's you as a team serving God through those gifts, through those talents. And there are, for the technically minded, there are those gifted tests that you can take that will tell you where you fall and what is your strengths. And then what I love to do is, or at least I did this when I found out my gifts, was to actually read books on those gifts. So if you pick different authors, so if it's leadership or if it's empathy or, whatever, compassion, those things, then through those readings, you're like, you know what? I can hear God calling me in the ministry direction of where I should be serving with these gifts. So it's not as much work as we tend to put on there. But again, just stop with the, I don't have a gift, because that's crap. That's not truth at all.
You have a place where you belong. And if you feel out of place, my church says, try something, kick the wheels. If you don't like it, try something else. You don't have to stay unhappy or in a place where you don't feel comfortable. And another excuse is, we feel unimportant. Oh, well, this job isn't important. Listen, there's a young girl who, Wayne and I hold hands when we walk in church. It's a thing. And she always goes, and points at us and goes, I love love. I love you. When I see you, I love you. Welcome. And she's gushing. Yeah. And when she's not there, I miss her.
Oh.
Yeah. It's the sweetest thing. And she could say, well, that doesn't matter. I'm just barking at people as they head in here. No, she is. No, I need to stop her and say, I need to do this and say, you have no idea. Mm-hmm. I look for you. There's also another girl that sings, and oh, wow. She's in a suit with a guitar, and she sings like big voice, alto, deep. Mm-hmm. And the way her face is lit with Jesus, it messes me up. And I need to get to her, too, and say, wow, thank you.
Yeah. It's good. Well, and it also, people feel like that no one sees, not that you serve to be seen, but when you feel like you're not making a difference, or the enemy tries to lie to you, or we lie to ourselves fleshly, it's great when someone is impacted by you. And I was actually talking about this with somebody earlier today about what are the little ways that you've been ministered to. And it's amazing. It could be, someone gets you a cup of coffee when you walk in on a Sunday morning, or they, are there to help you to make sure that you know where all the things are, where your kids are supposed to go, or whatever it is. those little things show you care. And if you're in a church, I'm not going to call any out by name, but you know who you are. If you're in a church that you aren't doing these things and people are leaving in droves, then you'll know why. You're not doing those little nuances that make people feel welcome, that make people feel like that they do have value, that God does love them unconditionally. Like, let it come out in such a gushing method that people are like, yeah, I can't not go to this church. I don't know where my place is yet, but I have to be here.
Well, my mother-in-law in Montgomery taught Sunday school for 41 something years. It's over 40 years. And they honored her. She's 90, and they honored her. And they said, who was taught by Miss Margaret? And people stood up. Whose children were taught by Miss Margaret? And people stood up. And then the 50 or so people that piled on for her celebration. Ooh, you think that little kid that you're talking to about Jesus may never remember it. Look at the impact.
Yeah. And if all else fails, get the Roxanne blend of coffee, start a coffee ministry, and the people go, this stuff is so good. And you're going to know that's, all you got to do is keep it hot. That's your main job.
And it's pretty too, and pretty shouldn't matter, but I love the butterflies on the bag. It's a beautiful bag, and it smells wonderful, and it sends missionaries around the world. It is really a wonderful gateway for Jesus because people love coffee business people. Oh, come in. And then before you know it, the gospel is shared. So it feels that it's a great gift. Go to mybrotherscup.com, click on the Roxanne blend, and you'll be delighted. And you can gift yourself too.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and get yourself a bag. Ace, I'm wondering if this would be appealing to you. In about a week, Mattel begins paying someone $277 an hour to play Uno.
Okay, as a Uno fan, it's probably one of the handful of games that I feel like I have any strategy and brain power. I would do this. Like, this is totally like if I had the 4 weeks to just do it and then, blitz social media like they're asking. I mean, it's fun. Like, I mean, it's one of the last fun games in my mind. Like, there's so many apps now that kind of take us away from an actual, card game or a board game anymore. It's a dying art form.
So the person that has his position will be playing Uno Quattro with strangers in New York City, and then we'll do a lot of social media. It is the new trend. That's what McDonald's is doing. French's and Skittles got together because they released a mustard flavor. Oof, I just can't imagine. But it took off on TikTok. So they're finding that to get into social media, but it's a high paid position, and somebody's going to love every minute of it.
Yeah.
Well, one thing we have got to mention before we go is stop getting naked in the sunflower field, please. They're begging you. What? And I don't know why this amused me highly, but there is a field, it's gigantuous. It has a lot of really tall sunflowers. Why? It's a family-friendly farm in the UK. As much as 3 times a day, different people, not the same ones, are going out in the middle of this field and getting nude and taking photographs. And the owners are beside themselves. So they have all these signs, no public nudity. Ace, you couldn't pay me to do something like that. I get real. I just couldn't.
I mean, I understand the desire to be an exhibitionist, but at some point, and if I'm this guy, nudity is extra. Like, you're not going to just go. If I can't stop you, then I'm going to charge you. So where's the line drawn? Because, a sunflower is tiny enough. You ain't covering nothing up.
Well, and I'm thinking it's itchy, it's hot, it's uncomfortable. Who do you really want to see your bits? I mean, I'm just like, but the thought that it's gotten so popular, people are tiptoeing through it used to be tulips, now it's the sunflower field, that they have to put up nudity signs.
See, that's just proof how hot this summer has been. It's so hot that we can't even put clothes on anymore. Like, we're just... I gotta be naked. Oh, there's sunflowers. That's a coincidence. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Please get dressed and leave the sunflower fields alone. And we'll see you each and every Friday. Follow, subscribe, and like so you don't miss future episodes. And then go back and see what you missed. And in the meantime, have a great rest of your weekend. Remember, of course, say thanks to My Brother's Cup at our website, RoxanneandAce.com, and Birmingham Mortgage Group if you are ready to get that dream home. Roxanne, have a great weekend. I love you.
I love you too so much.
You've been listening to Roxanne and Ace Unlimited. To make sure you don't miss future shows, you can subscribe anywhere you like to podcast and catch up on anything you've missed. Find out more at RoxanneandAce.com. Roxanne and Ace Unlimited is a production of Spacebird Media.